Hi, my name is Shivali. I'm a freshman in high school and I'm the founder and president of Tri-Valley Youth Music Group.
Hi, my name is Shruti. I'm a sophomore in high school and I am a group member of the Tri-Valley Youth Music Group.
Hi, my name is Isha Mittal. I'm an eighth grader and I'm also a member of the Tri-Valley Youth Music Group.
We're super excited to interview our guest speaker, Mr. Rugani, the band teacher at Pine Valley Middle School. Before we get started, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Tri-Valley Youth Music Group. The Tri-Valley Youth Music Group is all about spreading joy in the community through music, while giving opportunities to the youth to showcase their talents. Additionally, the Tri-Valley Youth Music Group would like to bring awareness to different music programs by interviewing various music professionals from public and private institutions. If our interviews can convince even one person to join their school's music programs, it will make a huge difference. Because the funding of public schools' music programs depend on student enrollment numbers, we hope to provide informational content to youth interested in music. So let's get started. It would be great if you could introduce yourself, Mr. Rugani, and tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for having me this evening. It's great to be here. It's great to see former students and see what you're doing. And I'm excited that you're trying to spread the word out there and get more people involved in their music program, which is awesome. So I'm Mr. Rugani. I teach at Pine Valley Middle School. This is my 10th year at Pine Valley Middle School, and it's my 14th year teaching total. And I've taught every grade except I haven't taught third grade. No, wait, I think I did teach third grade. All right, but in my career over that time, I've taught from kindergarten through high school. I've taught in a district. I taught when I first started in a district. I taught at San Ramon Valley High School. I co-taught with Cheryl Yee Glass, and I at the same time I taught at Hidden Hills Elementary School, and I taught kindergarten, first grade there. And then I taught in that position for 3 years. And I think it was a second year, I taught a jazz band at Windermere Ranch Middle School. And then I left to go to Boston when my wife was working on her graduate work at New England Conservatory. And so I took a year leave from our district and I went to Boston. I didn't get a permanent job there. I basically substituted for a year. But I had a long-term sub position from January through June when I was there. And so I had taken a leave so I could still come back to the district. I just wasn't guaranteed the same position. So then when I came back, I started working at Pine Valley, and I was also working at Walt Disney and Country Club. And I continued to do that for a few years. And then the program at Pine Valley started to expand. And so I started to add more classes, and then I couldn't continue to work at Walt Disney. So then I started work just at Country Club and Pine Valley, and then the classes grew even more. And so then at this point, I'm only teaching at Pine Valley. It took me eight years to get to the point, I guess 7 years to get to the point of being able to teach all at Pine Valley. And I was helping to teach drama there, co-teaching with Mrs. Schlentz for a couple years. And then actually last year was the first year that I have had a full-time job at Pine Valley that's just music related, because we added another. So now I'm teaching only at Pine Valley and only music and only instrumental, because I have taught choir and whatnot before. So that's all instrumental, and it's strings and band classes. So it's been really great to see how much it has grown over that time. And yeah, it's really cool. And I've been playing music and participating in music basically my whole life since second grade. So I've been involved in I'm a percussionist, so I've been taking drum lessons and percussion lessons since I was 7. And it's been great. All my friends are musicians, except for the friends that I've had since before I was in second grade, which I still have. My best friend, we've been friends since before kindergarten. So we have a long history together. He actually played an instrument in 5th through 7th or 8th grade. So even a lot of my friends who aren't musicians now played music at some point when we were in middle school or high school. And then, as you guys know, my wife is a musician, and
Wow.
our 2.5-year-old son will probably be a musician because I mean, he'll have a choice, but at the same time, we'll try to get him into playing music at some point. And he already at 2.5, he loves singing along he loves Queen, and he sings along with Queen
That's so
and whatnot.
cool.
So yeah, so my whole life has been around music and everything else. So yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't know that you taught like all grades except for third grade and that you even taught choir. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So now I like to know a little bit more about the music program offered at Pine Valley Middle School because like I remember as an incoming sixth grader, like I was so confused by the many options for elective because like electives are like completely foreign to sixth graders. There were like wheel electives, which had Spanish, drama, art, and debate. And then there was like a separate option for band, I remember. So I remember that I was like contemplating whether I should continue to take band in middle school or should I take wheel electives. So why would you suggest an incoming sixth grader to take band class at middle school? How can they tell if band is for them?
So well, as a musician and a music teacher, I'm going to always advocate for students to participate in music. I kind of have a bias in that, I guess. But if you're, I guess there's two sides of it. If you're playing in fourth and fifth grade, or even in fifth grade, and you started to play an instrument, you've kind of already invested a little bit of time into doing that, into learning that instrument. But you've probably also only had, once a week for 30 minutes, and then there's some weeks you don't get to see the teacher, so you haven't had a lot of hands-on time and instructional time with your teacher. And so if you're already kind of committed to it and like, I want to play the instrument, because someone who starts in elementary school, they started playing for a reason, right? They started because they were interested in learning an instrument. They heard someone else play an instrument. They like music in general, and they want to be someone who participates in it. So they have that passion. So that passion gets better as you play longer and get more advanced with your abilities. So if you've been doing it in elementary school, it's really nice to continue on. And because in middle school, as you know, Shivali, you get every day you get music,
Yeah.
and which instead of having a half hour once a week, which by the time you get into class and set up your instrument and there's the takedown the instrument, it's really like maybe 20 minutes of actual instruction time. And I've taught elementary instrumental music, so I know firsthand like how many interruptions you have and how many days like, oh, we don't, there's a field trip, so we don't get to have band today or whatever. So when you have a designated time in your every day that you get to go to music and learn, it makes a huge difference. And you guys probably remember, who've done music in sixth grade, from when you come in the first day of music to the last day of school in June, or let's say our spring concert, like the amount of growth that you have within that time is huge. And you learn like all the notes on your instrument, and just like your ability to be able to play and what you can play is so huge. Like it's so much bigger than when you started. Um,
Yeah,
and
I too. Like, I started like band in fourth grade, and the growth in sixth grade was so huge. Like, I couldn't even play past like the first octave of C, and then like eventually I could play like the high E. So the growth was so much like for me. So I feel like it's important to take
yeah,
band
and if
class.
you're if it's someone who did not play in sixth grade, sorry, in fourth and fifth grade, or not in fifth grade, and they're coming into middle school, um, it's still a good time to start, um, for a few reasons. One, so because everyone who's coming from elementary school only had a not a lot of time, they didn't have that everyday instruction. Um, if you're just starting, you're not going to be hugely behind everybody else, because you're going to get instruction every single day, and you see you'd see me every day, so you could ask questions every day and come after school, get help, so you can catch up really really quickly in sixth grade. When you join later in middle school or high school or whatever, you can still do that, but the people you're playing with have a little bit more experience, so you're going to be further behind. But even with that said, like when students come in, when I have new students in, let's say 7th grade, and they haven't played an instrument before, I know that, so I'm not certainly at the beginning of the year, I'm not expecting that they're going to be able to play the same as everybody else. So I work with them and say, okay, well, you can't play this right now, but you can play this. So let's have our tests on this, and let me see how you're doing on this. And then eventually, I've had the students who put in, like, they're like really committed. I'm going to learn my instrument, and they've never played an instrument before. By usually after the winter concert, so by January, February, they're basically caught up with everybody in the class. If they put in the time to do that, and they're committed to do it, I could bring them up to where they need to be, usually by the 2nd semester, and then by the area band festival in March, and by the spring concert in May, they're playing all the notes on the page and whatnot. Sometimes before that, like winter concert, I'm like, okay, well, play this part, but don't play that part. And sometimes we have to kind of adjust what they're playing, just because they're not quite as advanced with that. But if you start in 6th grade, like I said, you're not really that far behind, and you can catch up because you get music every single day. And we kind of go back and we start back at the beginning, and I go, okay, here's how you hold your instrument, here's how you sit, here's how you breathe. And so we kind of start with the basics, even though a lot of students have had that. When you're a beginner, you need repetition, repetition, repetition. So you need to have all that stuff over and over and over. And when you see someone for 30 minutes once a week in elementary school, sometimes by the time you come back the next week, you've forgotten, oh yeah, I'm supposed to sit up straight. And oh yeah, I'm supposed to hold it like this. And so you forget those things. When I see you every day and I can call you on it and say, feet on the ground, flat on the ground, sit up straight, bring your instrument up, and I can do that. You fix a lot of those habits quicker and whatnot.
Yeah, I remember you like telling the trumpets to like sit straight and stuff. And like, it's great how you're super like flexible with your students, like based on their ability. So that's really good. What instruments are offered at Pine Valley Middle School? Because I remember there were like differences between the instruments offered in elementary school and middle school. There were more options in middle school. So what instruments are exactly offered at Pine Valley Middle School?
So at Pine Valley, we the typical instruments that we like have every year, basically. So we have 2 areas. We have the strings and we have the band. So in the strings classes, which is like orchestra, we have the violin, which is the higher instrument. We have the viola, which is the mid-range instrument. Then we have the cello, which is a low bass instrument. And then we have the bass, the upright bass, which is the lowest of the instruments. So within there, that's what we have in a string ensemble. We also have a few piano players that are in the orchestra and in a chamber orchestra and in 6th grade strings. And the thing with piano, though, is it's an audition instrument, meaning that you have to already know how to play it and you have to audition to play it, just because there's a lot of people who want to play piano. And I don't usually take the time to teach you how to play piano. I teach you how to play with the group as a pianist. But because we're learning there's a string class, we're learning the strings. I don't teach the students how to play the piano. I'm teaching them to take what they know about how to play the piano and adapt it to, now I'm playing in a large ensemble. Because a lot of times piano players, they get very isolated because they play solo stuff all the time. When I went to college, the piano players, we never saw them because they never played with the band and never played with the orchestra. And then once in a while we would have a piece that they'd get to play with the band, and we go, oh, it's a piano player. I mean, I had a lot of friends who were piano players, and I never saw them in class, but I saw them in my theory class and my other classes and my music history class. And then we hung out outside of school, but I didn't get to see them in my performance classes. And then once in a while they'd come around because we had a piano piece that we had to play in wind ensemble, and like, oh, yay, you're here. And it would be fun to play with them. And there's probably more chances that they play in orchestra than they play in band. So in the strings, that's what we get. And then for the band classes, so you have the woodwinds, which are flute, and the clarinet, the bass clarinet, which is like the clarinet, but a low version of the clarinet, the alto saxophone, which is the high saxophone, the tenor saxophone, which is mid-range, but it sounds in the bass area, and then the bari sax, which is like the low-end saxophone. And then, so those are the main ones. You can also play a double reed instrument, which is the oboe or the bassoon. So they have two reeds rather than a reed that goes on a mouthpiece. And though you can play those, they're a little bit more finicky, I guess I'll say, or temperamental instruments. They take a lot more patience. And usually if you play the oboe or the bassoon, you're going to want to take private lessons because they're a difficult instrument to play well without someone who knows how to play that instrument, and is a professional playing an instrument, without them showing you how to play it right and get the right tone and everything else. Those two instruments in particular are instruments that I highly recommend if you're going to play them, you take private lessons. Moving into the brass, in the high brass, the trumpet is the high brass. Then the French horn is the mid-range brass. It's kind of like the viola of the band. And then as we move our way down, we have trombone and baritone. They're in the same range. They're low bass clef instruments, but because of how they're built, they have different sounds. And then we have the tuba, which is the low bass sound in the band. And then we do have some electric bass players in the group, which usually play like the same part as the tuba is playing. And some of our music has bass parts written in, but a lot of times they're reading the baritone horn part, the baritone baritone, the brass part, and they're playing that on the bass. And usually if they're playing electric bass, that's also an audition instrument because there's so many people who want to play it, and I'll teach you how to refine it and whatnot. But I found that if students don't have prior knowledge on bass, they kind of lose interest and don't do really well if they don't have some prior knowledge on that. And then in the back of the room, you have percussion, which is a very large realm of things that you play. You have all the drums, all the cymbals, basically everything that you don't blow into. All the stuff that's not the wind and not the bass, it gets thrown into the percussion. And even with that, sometimes you have whistles and stuff and you blow into those. So kind of all that we call it the toys, all the toys and the xylophone and the bells and the timpani and the crash cymbals and the triangle and the tambourine, and the list goes on and on and on. That would be percussion based. And so with percussion, the thing to know about that is if you come into it, I train percussionists, I don't train drummers. And this is a personal philosophy because I was trained as a drummer when growing up, meaning I was trained how to play drums. I was not trained how to play percussion. Meaning I wasn't trained how to play timpani and the mallet instruments and all of the other things. I wasn't trained to do that until I got to college. So all of my lessons and everything, I was a very good drum set player and a drummer, and I could play rhythms and everything just fine. And I was really good with that. But I got to college and I could play percussion pretty well, but I didn't know all of the techniques and everything else. And when it came to like playing mallet instruments, I was like, what are you talking about? So I don't want other people to have to do that same thing. So if you sign up to play percussion, my theory is you're going to play percussion. You're not going to sit there and play snare drum for every song. And that's not fair to the other kids who are like, well, I want to, because a lot of times we have 8 or 9 students who want to play percussion, which is a lot. And we have to cycle through so everyone gets a chance to play.
Yeah, I remember you have to like rotate. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to rotate through that and make sure everyone gets a chance to play everything. So, so as a percussionist, you have to be committed to learn all of the instruments. And usually percussionists don't have an issue with that. They're not used to that. So in elementary school, usually they play like the snare drum, bass drum, maybe cymbals. And they don't have all the instruments in elementary school for them to play. So they come to middle school. They have to know that they're not going to just play drums the whole time. They will play drums, but like my first thing is when you're 6th grader, I'm like, okay, you're learning how to play mallet instruments and read music. That's your first task. We're not even touching the snare drum until later in the semester or the year. So we always start the first part of the year just learning how to play bells and read the notes on a page and the rhythms there and put all that together. And then we kind of start to focus on the other parts of the percussion.
Wow, that's a lot of options for instruments. So how would a student go about choosing an instrument from all those options?
So, well, there's the way that they would normally in a normal circumstance without COVID. And that would be if they contacted me, like parents contact me via email, usually I'll just set up a time after school for them to come to school, and I'll say, all right, what instruments are you interested in playing? And I'll take them out, I'll get them ready, and I'll have them try out the different instruments so they can see, they can hold them and feel how heavy they are. They can, I did give them like a quick lesson on how to play the instrument. Like, okay, here's how you make a sound, and they'll play a clarinet and a saxophone and a trumpet and a trombone. Not necessarily every instrument. Like they usually come in with an idea of, I want to play a brass instrument, or I'm interested in clarinet and trumpet. Okay, cool. And so I'll take those out and we try them, and I give them some pointers about how they sound or what might work for them, because not your body's not built necessarily to play every instrument. So and that's just something you have to, like, I don't have the lips to play flute professionally. When I was learning how to play flute in college, I learned, because I had to learn how to play the instruments enough to be able to teach it. I didn't have to be proficient at playing the instruments. But when I played flute, I was having a really hard time. So I went to one of my professors who wasn't teaching me how to play flute, but she had a doctorate in music education and I think a master's in flute performance. And she had been playing for years. So she was like a professional flute player who got paid to play flute with high level people and everything. So I went to her and I said, please help me. I'm having a hard time. We sat down for 45 minutes or an hour. She helped me with some stuff. And I guess toward the end, she's like, yeah, I don't think you really have the lips to play the flute well, like at professional level. And I was like, okay, I can live with that. Right.
Oh,
So I
wow.
can play it at a level like middle school and whatnot. I can play it. But if we start working on higher notes and the tone and stuff, I'm not going to be a professional flute player. My body's not built to play flute professionally. That's coming from a professional flute player, and lots of troubleshooting going with that. And I'm like, okay, I can accept that. So
Wow,
some
I didn't
students
know that.
might be, sorry, Shivali, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I didn't know that like you had to have like a certain, body to do like some instruments.
Yeah,
That's
and most of the time it doesn't matter. But sometimes, so one of the things, for instance, if you have large lips, so someone who has large lips, sometimes if they want to play a French horn, which has a smaller mouthpiece than the trumpet, or even a trumpet, if they have large lips, they may not be very good at playing the trumpet. But if you put them over on trombone or baritone or tuba, they might be phenomenal because big lips are like a plus on those instruments. So there's things like that that I can help a student kind of, pick out. Most of the time, there aren't any physical issues that with a student playing an instrument. The only physical issue that they'd have in middle school is maybe they want to play trombone and their arm's not long enough to get to seventh position. And I'm like, that's going to change as you get older. So let's just not worry about that. Your B naturals when you go out there are never going to be in tune until your arm gets long enough. But we can deal with that. By the time you get to high school and it's going to matter more, your arm will be long enough to do that. So that's kind of the limitations that you'll usually have as in middle school, certainly as a sixth grader. And so when I meet with them, we kind of go over some of those things. But most of the time, if a student wants to play something, I'm like, here's what you do. And then what I tell them, I say, okay, go home and go on YouTube and find some people playing the instrument, professionals, because anybody can put anything on YouTube and say, hey, I'm a saxophone player, and you listen to it and you go, oh no, you're not, right? So I tell them to go find someone who's a reputable person, even if they need to do a Google search of, is this person legit? Oh yeah, oh wow, okay, yeah. And then listen to them, and that tells them like, okay, if you stuck with this instrument and you learned it really, really well, that's where you could be. And that's what it sounds like when a professional plays it, and that's how pretty the instrument is. So like, it's certainly if they're kind of like, I don't know if I want to play cello or violin, I go home and listen to what each of those two instruments sound like, and hopefully one of them will speak to you and you'll be like, oh, that is so beautiful. Now with us in the COVID, that's how I would normally do it. With us with COVID, we can't meet the one-on-one thing. So I haven't had anybody yet ask me about that, because usually it happens in spring, like March. Yeah, March and to the end of the year is usually when students are making appointments to see me and make this decision, sometimes in February. So I would say that if a student is interested, have them or the parent contact me. first thing I'll probably tell them to do the same thing about going on YouTube. Right? Think about the instruments you want to listen to or want to play. Listen to professionals play it, so at least you can narrow it down to something else. And then we can meet and discuss it and talk about it. Yeah, this year's just going to be different, just because I can't meet the one-on-one, and they're not going to be able to try out the instruments. They might, I don't know, but they might be able to go to a music store and try them out. But I'm not positive. I could see that not being possible also, but I don't want to speak for the music stores about if they're allow that to happen or not. I would assume, because of the aerosols that come out of an instrument, unless it's a string instrument, that they're not going to be able to do that. So I would say, if you want to play an instrument, or if you're interested in playing an instrument next year, first contact me. Let's kind of have a conversation about where you are, what you think you might want to play, or even what family, or if you have no idea, then I can maybe even point you in the right direction for some YouTube videos or whatever to get you kind of, oh, okay, that. But really, if you're going to play an instrument, one, you have to pick an instrument that you are going to dedicate to practicing, and you want to learn, and you want to be good at playing that instrument. If you sign up to play an instrument because your parents played clarinet and you have a clarinet at home, but you're like, I'm not really into clarinet, you're not going to be good at the instrument, because you're not going to try, you're not going to care about it, because you are not the person who wants to do it. You're playing that instrument because your parents had it. And
Right.
sometimes people do that and they're successful, and they're like, yeah, I didn't really want to do it, but you know what? Once I got into it, it was like, yeah, cool. Like the way I got into it, into playing, is I went to my sister's middle school concert. I think she was in 7th grade at the time. I don't remember. And I heard the drummer play I don't remember what piece it was, but the drummer played. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And my wife, her story,
Wow, I didn't know.
she was, I think she went to a music store, or she went to, I don't remember exactly where she was, but they're like, okay, pick out what instrument you want to play. And it had all the instruments out there. And on the wall, there was a clarinet. And I don't remember if it was a different color or something, but she's like, I want to play that. So she saw it and she wanted to play that. So sometimes you'll look at it and say, I want to play that. I always say, listen to what it sounds like, because because like if you want to play oboe and you heard a middle school student who was a beginner play oboe, you would go, oh, never mind, I'm not going to play that instrument. But if you hear a professional who's been playing a long time play it, then you go, oh, that's what it sounds like, because that instrument's not going to sound very good for a few years, like the tone of it and everything, because it takes a long time to build that up. Yeah, so you have to be committed to wanting to hear it, to play it. You need to like the sound of the instrument, because you're going to have to spend a lot of time listening to it, right? And you want to work on that. I mean, some kids will pick an instrument, and they wanted to do it. They were committed, and partway through the year, they're kind of like, I'm not really down with this. And usually I try to say, okay, well, what do you want to play? And then a lot of times they'll switch to something else, and they're more successful with that, because now they've been in band for part of the year, so they've heard a bunch of instruments and whatever, and they've heard people talk about playing the instruments, and they know some of the difficulties of the instruments and some of the easy stuff of the instruments at that point. So they're like, oh, okay, well, I want to switch to trumpet now. Okay, are you sure? We can try that. And we can transition sometimes midway through the year, or sometimes they'll be like, okay, 7th grade, I'm going to play the trumpet. All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
So that's where they're like allowed to change like what instrument they want to play like mid-year if they feel like.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on what instrument they're playing and what the scenario is. So some students, I've in the past I've said, no, let's switch at 7th grade year, just because we're getting ready for a concert or whatever. Spring's hard to switch because we have a lot more concerts, right? We have to get ready from January to March. We're usually getting ready for the area band festival and the area string festival. And then right after that, we have to get ready for the spring concert. So if you're trying to start a new instrument, that if you're going from like clarinet to trumpet, they're completely different. The fingerings are different. The mouthpiece is different. The only things that are the same is you're reading treble clef and you have to use air, but everything else is different. So trying to switch that and learn music that's harder than what we were doing in the beginning of the year is a difficult thing to do. I've had students do that, but normally if they're going to switch in mid-year, I'm going, okay, let's switch from alto to tenor sax, or let's switch from trumpet to French horn, or let's switch, from brass to another brass, or from a woodwind to another woodwind, so that there are a lot of similarities with it. And then it makes it an easier transition. So if a student wants to completely do a 180 and switch completely what they're going to do, then usually I'll be like, okay, let's start working on that this year, with the plan that when we come back in fall, you're going to play that instrument, but let's you and I start working on how you play that instrument now, and rent it now or borrow it from the school, whatever. And let's go about the process of you learning that instrument in spring. And then when you come back in fall and you work on it over summer, when you come back in fall, you're going to feel like, all right, I'm ready to do this.
Right, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Would you suggest renting or buying an instrument? Because like not all bands offer instruments.
So I would, and I think most music teachers would say this also. I would say, unless you have access to an instrument, I would rent it until you know that you're going to play that instrument for a long period of time, because instruments are an investment. I mean, the cheapest instrument of good quality in a band, is probably $600. That's the cheapest version of whatever instrument you want to pick in the band, regardless of percussion, because you can get like a snare drum set that's decent-ish for a couple $100. But if you're looking at a flute or a trumpet or a saxophone or a trombone or a tuba or anything like that, you're looking at probably $600 minimum, and that's a pretty big investment. If you're looking at strings, you can get them for less, maybe $300 to $400. You can get a pretty good beginner violin, and for, I don't know, maybe $400 or so, you could probably get a pretty good cello, and for about $600 to $800, you could probably get a decent bass, and that kind of thing. But a lot of times, people will go out and they'll go, "Oh, Costco has a flute and it's $100." Well, I have a garbage can, and that's where I would put that flute, because that's where it belongs. Those instruments that are that cheap are that cheap for a reason. And if it shouldn't say if it breaks. When it breaks shortly, and you take it to the shop to get it fixed, they'll be like, "I'm not touching that. It's not worth it." And you might end up paying more than $100 for the repair of that, when you're like, you might as well just have gotten a better instrument. And they don't hold value, so if you ever decide you don't want to play, you're not going to be able to sell it. If you got a Yamaha flute and paid $800 for it or whatever, I don't know what the going rate is, and you went through high school and everything, so you played it for 6-7 years, and you're like, yeah, I love playing music, but I'm not going to continue on with it. Or you continue on and you're like, that was my beginner flute. Now I have this professional flute because I'm going to go into college and I want to play more, but I need a better instrument. But I'm going to sell my old one so I can buy a new one. You can still, the retention of that, people are still going to want that instrument, and you can still get money for that instrument. If you have like a First Act or something that you got at Target, people aren't going to want to pay anything for that. And
Right.
like if you came to me and said, "Hey, I have a free flute I want to give you," I'd be like, "What am I going to do with that?" I could put it up on the wall and say, "Look, I have flute art," but that's all that I'm going to use it for. So also a lot of most of actually all the places that I know of that rent instruments, at least for the first year of your contract, you can rent to own, which means if you whatever you put into your rental for that first year per month, at the end of the year, if you're like, "Oh, I want to buy that instrument," then they will take either that whole amount or a percentage of that amount that you paid for renting, and they'll apply it for you to buy a new instrument. So
I didn't know that.
yeah, so you get kind of a discount of that. So if you paid, let's say you paid $30 or $40 a month in rental fees for a trumpet, at the end of the year, your kid was like, "Yeah," and this is 6th grade, and they're like, "Yeah, you know what? I think I want to do this definitely through 8th grade, and I'll probably do it in high school because it sounds like a fun thing to do. I'm going to continue on with that." And the parents were like, "Okay, then you know what? It's a $1,200 instrument, and we've already paid whatever per month." And then the music store, I don't know if they'll give you 100% of what you put into it, but they usually will have some kind of percentage or whatever. And then they'll say, "Okay, so we're going to knock off a couple $100 off of that because you paid the rental. So now you've gotten, a discount basically you didn't because you paid the money, but at the time,
Yeah.
you have that discount kind of in it because you already paid for that. So then you're kind of like, all right, cool. The thing with that is though, it's usually only the first year. So if you rent for multiple years, usually that doesn't apply. I have known, I think some places will go like 2 years, but that's the highest. So if you rent for a long period of time, you're not going to have that kind of investment, but you're going to have um, you're going to have that you haven't spent all that money all at once for an instrument. Certainly, if your student decides, I don't really want to play it. On the strings end, if you're playing violin or viola, if you're a sixth grader, they have different sizes. You're not on a full size violin yet because you have to grow. Unless you're a big sixth grader with long arms and long fingers, you're not going to be big enough yet to play a full size violin. So you're going to have a half size or a 3/4 size. So if you buy one now, there's a good chance that next year you're going to have to buy another one because it has to be bigger. And the next year you might have to buy another one. So I suggest if you're a string player, just to rent until you're at full size, which usually for most middle school students, by the time they're an eighth grader, they'll probably be on a full size violin. So I always say, all right, so just once you're at a full size violin or cello or whatever, then purchase it if you're going to continue on, because then you can keep that up and through adulthood. At the same time, string instruments are a lot cheaper. I've seen some pretty decent ones that you can get for like $200, and I'm like, that's really not that bad, and you could probably have some retail value of that when you're done with it, or donate it to a school or something like that, when you're done. So yeah, I recommend renting before you buy. If it's a big instrument, usually the schools will have some you can borrow. So like for us, if you're playing trombone or tuba or cello or bass, like the upright bass, we have those at school because they're cumbersome to just have at home. Even some students will have, like most of the cello players we have, they have a cello at home. And so we provide a cello at school so they don't have to bring them back and forth, because the cello
Oh
is,
yeah.
as some of them, it's basically almost as tall as they are. And that's kind of a pain to bring back and forth, certainly if you're taking a bus or whatever. So if we have an instrument at school that we can loan out to a student, then I will definitely do that. And normally, like, we have some flutes and clarinets, but normally flutes and clarinet players, they have one, either they're renting it or whatever. And quite frankly, all of our flutes and clarinets are pretty old and they need repair, and they work, but they're not in the best shape. So sometimes you're better off just renting, because you're going to get a good instrument. And if something breaks, that's not like, you don't drop it, but a pad falls off or something, you take it in, they just repair it. You don't have to pay for that because you're renting it, and that instrument's just, it's kind of old. Things are gonna happen to it, and they'll fix it. If you drop it on the ground or run over it with a car, that's different. But if it's just kind of normal wear and tear, they'll fix it for you free of charge, because that's part of the agreement of the contract.
Yeah. I remember like when I started band in elementary school, like, yeah, we started out with like renting a trumpet from a local music store. And then once I was sure that I really wanted to play the trumpet, we bought the trumpet. So yeah, I completely agree. So also, how are like the school music programs funded in California and our school district? Does like enrollment play a factor?
Enrollment plays a factor in the classes that we get. So, as for instance, when I first started at Pine Valley, we had one orchestra class that was a full orchestra. So it had strings, and it had wind instruments, and it had percussion. And I think that class was 23 students or something. And there were about 12 of them that were strings. So we had 12 string students at the whole school. 12. And then I would meet in the mornings for A period. I met with sixth grade band for, I think, 2 days. And then I met with sixth grade strings for 2 days. And then Wednesday, because it was a late start, I didn't meet with anybody. And then the following year, I started the sixth grade band because we had enough students to do that. So Mr. Law said, oh, all right, we have enough. Great, let's build the program. And so he gave me another class. I was like, yes, good. And so then I still saw sixth grade strings in the morning. And I think I only did that for another year because it wasn't very successful seeing them for a period or after school. I think I tried both of them. So then our strings got enough that we got enough string students that we went to a full orchestra with no wind players. And then part of the reason we did that is I started to have incoming sixth graders joined the orchestra so they could play in the orchestra with the seventh and eighth graders. And then that grew into where I had so many students that I had too many seventh and eighth graders and sixth graders that I couldn't put them in one class. So then we were able to get another class for just sixth grade and seventh and eighth grade. And then 2 years ago, the seventh and eighth grade got to a point where it grew. So now that's split up into two. So now we have a sixth grade strings and two seventh and eighth grade strings, as well as a sixth grade band and two seventh and eighth grade bands, which is how my job went from teaching 2 classes at Pine Valley to now teaching 6, is because the numbers went up. And so as our numbers go up, then that constitutes us being able to have more classes because we have the students able to do that, and we have the interest for the students to be taking those classes. And then as far as, so that's what the district covers, or that's what the school covers, or that's what they basically they're covering for my job. They're paying for me to teach. As far as instruments and music, instrument repairs, anything that we need to purchase for our program, that comes from parent donations and fundraising that we do. And sometimes it'll come from, which I guess is the same thing, but sometimes it'll come from Ed Fund, like we'll ask Ed Fund for help or PTA for help in purchasing an instrument or purchasing a certain something, and they'll help us with that. They'll either give us part of the money or they'll buy it for us or whatever. And that comes from parent donations to those particular institutions or programs. And so then we do fundraising. And sometimes we just do fundraising, which I usually purchase $1,500 to $2,000 worth of just music every year, at least. Because when I got there, the program, we didn't have a lot of music, and I've been there 10 years, and I've been slowly building it up. But over the last, I don't know, at least 4 years, I've probably spent around $2,000 each year, except for this year because of different circumstances. I usually spend about $2,000 on sheet music every year. And part of that is we've gotten more classes. So each class, for each class has 4 pieces they play for each concert. And they have 4 or 5 concerts per year. So, and each piece of music, if we buy new ones, each piece of music is costing $60 to $80 just to have for us to purchase that. So one concert for one group, it will cost us a couple $100 just for them to play a winter concert. And then you cycle through. So every 4 years or 5 years, I might play the same song that I did 4 years ago, because the people in our program never played it. And the people, maybe they're seniors in high school and they'll come to our concert. Like, oh, I remember when I played that song. But it's been a lot of years. So even the people coming to the concert, they may not remember that we did it.
Yeah.
And for me, working on a piece of music that we go over and over and over and over and over and over, if I give it a rest for 4 or 5 years and it comes back, I'm like, oh, I remember that song. That was awesome. I want to do that again. Woohoo! So we'll put it back into rotation every few years, but you don't want to play the same music every year. So,
Yeah.
And especially with string music, we don't have a lot of string music. So the last 2 years, I've been purchasing music, like almost every single piece that we played in the last couple of years for strings. I've purchased it because we don't, like, everything that was in our music library, we've already played within the last couple of years. So I'm like, okay, we need new music. So I've slowly built that up. And so now we have some repertoire in there. And then once we started having the 6th grade strings as an actual class, which has only been a couple of years, we don't have a lot of music that's rated for them to play. So I've had to, get the music for them for that. So all of the stuff besides paying for me to teach, everything else that we purchase and we have to do through fundraising, basically is all through parent support. So fundraising, parent support, or donations at the beginning of the year. That's how we get funded. And our community is is very nice to our program, to all of our programs, but to our music program especially. They're very, they give us donations at the beginning of the year, and they are very supportive when we have fundraisers and helping out with that. And certainly when we have a cause like, hey, we want to buy a bass clarinet. We had to do that a couple years ago. And we're like, okay, we're raising money for a bass clarinet. This fundraiser is for a bass clarinet and this fundraiser. And hopefully with those two fundraisers, we can raise the $2,000 or whatever we need to buy this bass clarinet. All right, cool, let's do it. And then we'll do that. And sometimes we'll be like, oh, we're so close, we're just a little bit short. Then Ed Fund will come in and say, all right, you know what, we're gonna give you the rest of that money. We're like, yay, thank you, Ed Fund. So a lot of times it's working with PTA, Ed Fund, and then the fundraising, and then the donations that we have within the year. So that's kind of how we get funded. So the actual class is being funded by the district, but everything that we do in the class and we purchase for the class and the instruments and everything, that's all funded through parent donations and fundraising, which is also parent donations, making it to the fundraisers.
Oh, cool. So speaking of like all those bands, like I remember in 6th grade, it was overwhelming to hear like all those options such as string, cadet band, orchestra. So what different band groups are there? Like what are the differences between each of the band groups? And do these band groups vary from school to school?
Yeah, so not all the schools in our district have exactly the same groups, but the ones that do, they kind of run the same sort of way. So at Pine Valley, though, we have, so I was mentioning before, we have 6th grade band and 6th grade strings. So the instruments I said before that are the band instruments are in the band, and the instruments in the strings are in the strings class. So we have one each of 6th grade band and strings. And then for in the strings, we have orchestra and we have chamber orchestra. So orchestra is 7th and 8th grade, and chamber orchestra is 7th and 8th grade. The difference between the two of them is that chamber orchestra is an audition class, so you have to audition to be in there. So the students who are in that class usually have a little bit more experience playing. They can play a little bit harder music. Some of them take private lessons, so they're a little bit further ahead with that. So we play a little bit more challenging music. And so my expectation of the students in that class is a little bit higher because it should be, because they should be able to handle a little bit higher music. The band kind of works the same way. We have concert band, which is 7th and 8th grade, and symphonic band, which is 7th and 8th grade. So symphonic band's the same thing like chamber orchestra, but band, where it's audition based. We play harder music, we play more music, and my expectations of the level that they're playing, I have a little bit higher expectations of where they are, just because the students in there should have more experience and should be able to play that music. And they did that audition process to get there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was in symphonic band, so yeah, I remember like having to audition, and yeah, it was a cool process. So I feel like this is probably a lingering question which many families have. How do you think band will look like in the year of 2021 to 2022?
That's a
I
good
know
question.
this is probably a difficult question to answer, but
Yeah. So I guess the quick answer is I don't know, because we don't know where we're going to be. It's very difficult teaching a performance-based class virtually when you can't perform, and I can't hear everybody all at once. So I mean, we're making it through, and I'm able to hear students and whatnot, but we're not able to do what we normally do. So ideally, if everything goes well, everyone will be back at school in a normal circumstance where everyone's going to go to all their classes and they're going to attend it, and we'll be able to play and we'll be able to have concerts. So it'll be kind of like it has been in the past, where we get there, we kind of have some get to know yous. And as a 6th grader, I start you out and see where everybody is, and then we kind of grow from there. We have a fall concert, a winter concert. So a fall concert in October, a winter concert in December. We have area band and string festival in March, and we have a spring concert in May. Maybe some other stuff within there also. That would be the ideal, normal kind of circumstance with all of that. So I'm planning for that to be the case at this point. I mean, I ask myself every day, what's it going to look like next year? So I'm planning for it to be pretty normal next year, maybe with some restrictions, but as a pretty normal normal, at least as far as the classes go, pretty normal. As far as concerts go, we may not be able to have large crowds for concerts still. I don't know. But if the students can be there, we can always do like a virtual concert or whatnot. And that could still work. Like we could play and record it or YouTube it or whatever, live stream it. And that could be an option for that. So as of right now, I don't know. But I'm hoping that everything will be at least somewhat back to normal with some
Yeah, let's hope so.
yeah. If not, we'll probably kind of do what we're doing now with we meet, we have student support. So if students need help with things, we do that. We play every day, but I don't get to hear everybody play every day. So it takes longer to fix issues and whatnot and learn music and do things. And, we're not doing any concerts right now, so we don't get to have any end goal, which is, hey, we're going to learn this music so we can perform it. So yeah, right now I don't know, but I'm hoping that it will be normalish next year.
Yeah. Now, Isha has a few questions. Can you answer them, Mr. Rugani?
Sure, no problem.
All right, so first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for using your time to be here today. It's really helpful towards our viewers, and it really helps students struggling about what elective they should choose. So many students may worry about their grades in band and their progress. I know many people that were confused and worried about how their grades were going to be determined in my school. So can you please explain how the grading system works in Pine Valley Middle School's band, and how does it focus on students' improvement rather than a simple number?
So the grades, it's kind of weird because there's this year for COVID grades, and then there's the normal. I'll kind of talk about normal because that's hopefully what we'll be doing next year. Because this year, a lot of the grade is basically just participation, like do this assignment the best you can. I'll give you comments on how you did. And yeah, so just basically follow directions, turn it in, and you get a grade. Boom, yay. So there's a lot of that. Sometimes we have that also with grades at normal circumstances. So I don't do a lot of tests in music. I do a lot of assessment, but it's kind of, every day I'm listening to students play and like, fix this, fix this. I don't believe that we need to do a lot of tests to see how students are doing. I can either just have them play in class, say, Isha, why don't you play that for me? Let me hear how it sounds. That's great. Can you try this next time and fix that? Great. Awesome. And then, I'll listen for it. I'll be like, oh yeah, sounding much better. So I don't necessarily have to do a lot of quizzes and a lot of tests. Some things like scales and whatnot that I'm like, okay, these are essential skills. We need to play them and learn them. I will give quizzes, tests, whatever you want to call them on those. My main goal though with teaching a concept is I want the student to get it. I don't really care what grade they get. The grade will, I guess, go with whatever they do. So I want them to follow directions and do what they need to. If, let's say, they play a test, whatever, a playing test of a scale or something else, and they totally bomb it, whatever. The main thing to understand is, certainly if it's something that's in class, like they're playing in front of the class and they're playing something like that, and I'm grading them on it, that is a snapshot of how they're doing on that day at that time in front of people. That's not really a fair assessment of how they really can play their instrument with all of those things going against them. So, but that's a very important life skill to be able to, for like getting used to job interviews and everything else in life, to be able to present what you have in front of people. And like, the more you do it, the better you become. So I encourage students to do that. I want them to do that. And if they, let's say, if they fail at that, that's okay. They can always redo it. And usually when they redo it, I'm like, okay, let's redo it after school, or let's do it at AP, or let's find another time to do it. If you want to redo it in front of everybody, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. But if you want to take that out and just play it for me, let's do that. That'll make it easier. So I want to make sure a student gets the concept and can do it. So I want to make sure so they can retake tests over and over and over and over. And I usually say, okay, the last day to do this is this day. You have to make sure any retakes you're doing are this day. So even this year doing that, like we're going over scale, like sixth graders are playing scales now, and they're recording them in Google Class or on Flipgrid, and I'm grading them. And so then I give them comments. And if they need to redo it, I'm like, you can redo it and get up to 100 points, or the the full point value, 100% on the assignment back, but you have to redo it. So take my comments, work on it. If you want to come see me for student support before you do that, great, awesome. So that's not really much different than how I normally would do things. Because I'm really, when you do a test and you play something, that's a snapshot of one time. And maybe you're having a bad day. And I don't think that should be the end all grade that you get because you were having a bad day or something happened and you're like, oh man, or you're nervous because people are watching you and you're like, oh, people are watching me play. All right, all those things. I think those are good things to have in life, that obstacles to have and put in your way and have to overcome. I think that's a good thing for people up to an extent. But at the same time, I do understand that will affect someone how well they play. And I don't want them to feel bad that, oh man, I got a bad grade because I was having a bad day. It's like, okay, so you got a bad grade because you're having a bad day. Let's do it again. Redo it. Come see me for help. And sometimes students take me up on that. Sometimes students just don't redo it. And I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm giving you opportunity to get all of the points for that, to get 100% on that. And I'm offering to give you the help to get you the point to do that. So that's the main thing with, so we only really get tested or quizzed or whatever on things that are like essential stuff. And like, okay, I really need to see how you play this year. So let's take this piece of music and play this section. Or you need to know how to play these scales. So I need you to play them. And you need to be able to play in time with a metronome. So I want you to play it in time or whatever. The other grades that we have are, you come to the concert, you show up and you're dressed in your concert attire and you play the concert. Boom, you get 100 points. Like, that's pretty easy because you've done all the work already, right? We worked on everything. Now you just have to show up and play. And then you get participation for being in class every day. So if you come with your instrument and your music and your pencil and you come with a good attitude, ready to learn, boom, 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 you get participation points just for being there in class and following directions. If you don't have your instrument or you forget your music or whatever, then you get points deducted because you didn't do your job. Basically, I try to, a lot of my grades and whatnot, and you can ask people who've been my students. I put a lot of responsibility on the student. Like, okay, you need to do this. Here's how you do it. You need to do it. If you need help, let me know. Otherwise, you're going to do it. And if you fail, that's fine. I always say that failure is good. Okay, because fail helps you learn. So I have no problem with people failing as long as they fail for a good reason, not because they just didn't do it. That's not really fail, that's laziness, right? But if someone fails because they just didn't quite get it or they're having a hard time, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I like when students do that. I like it because I like to help them overcome that and get to the next level and then see that like, oh, yes, I get it. Like that kind of like that light bulb of, oh yes, I get it. Because we are all going to hit a wall with everything that we do that we want to be proficient in doing. Everyone's going to hit a wall at some point doing that, whether it's sports, academics, music, whatever. You're always going to hit a wall. You're always going to fail. And so it's okay. It's perfectly fine to fail as long as you can learn from what you did wrong and learn how to fix it and learn to be better. So I try to make my grading with that philosophy. Okay, it's okay to fail. It's okay to get a bad grade. Let's figure out how to get it better and make it better. But you're going to get the grade you earn. If you bomb a test and you don't go through the process of trying to redo it or get help, then if you got a D on a test, it's going to stay a D. I mean, I can't just change it and go, well, you didn't come see me, but I'm going to change it anyway. It's up to the student to make sure that they figure out what they did wrong, how to fix it, but I will help them overcome that and get the better grade that they want. But really my goal is I don't really care about the grade. I care about the student understanding how to play it so we can move on to the next thing, which builds on the thing that they're struggling with. So basically my grading, I try to approach the thing of failure is fine. Let's learn from whatever you did wrong and figure out how to fix it and move on and bring ourselves up and fix it.
Yeah, it's about like the students' like diligence and like willingness to like learn and improve, I feel like. So yeah, that's good that you're flexible with the student's ability.
Yeah, as a student, I like how you really like consider the students' feelings and it actually helps them grow more.
I
So
I
some
I,
people
tr-
believe,
I try to get it from a student's perspective, and I welcome like a student talking to me about how they're feeling or what's struggling with them, so then I can understand, because it's been a long time since I've been a middle school student, so sometimes I forget, like, I don't know, why
Yeah.
can't you do it? Well, I can't do it because of this. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, that's a good point.
so some people believe that academic electives are a better option than musical ones. So I know that many of my friends and some of the viewers out there believe the same exact thing. So what are the benefits to a musical elective and how would you change their mind?
Um, hmm. I mean, I'd say no matter what you do for your elective, you need to do something that you want to do, regardless of what it is. Um, I personally would not pick or have, like, my son when he grows up. I'm not going to have him do an elective because you know what? That's going to look better for you on a college application. If he doesn't want to do it, that would be silly for me to like say you need to go do that because it's going to look that. If he says, "But I want to learn how to basket weave," then I'll be like, "Okay, go learn how to basket weave. If that's what you want to do, then great, awesome, cool, let's do it. And if you don't like that, then let's find something else." So I think regardless of whatever elective sorry, I should say whatever classes you can choose that you take. So there are classes, you don't really get to choose. Like you have to take math up to a certain point, and then you can choose what math you do. You have to take English up to a certain point, and then you can choose what English you get to do. But when you choose, when you get to the point that you get to choose, whether it's in middle school, high school, college, um, you need to choose things that you want, that you're interested in learning about. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful with it. So I, I mean, as a musician myself, like I said before, all my friends are musicians. My wife's a musician. Um, if I go on Facebook, I'm like, all these people are musicians. A lot of my friends who are on Facebook that I've had recently, or parents or whatever, they're parents of students that are on my friends list because I'm a teacher that teaches music. So it's still because of music. And so music is my life, and music has always been my life since second grade, and it's always been a part of me. And music's something that I can continue to do music, play music, whatever, be involved in music for the rest of my life till the day I die. As long as my body doesn't, that I don't get arthritis or something and I can't play, but then I could possibly go to something else, or I can write music, or I can do lots of different things involved in music. So anyway, I think regardless of what you're going to do, you need to pick an elective that you're interested in learning and want to do. Um, I personally don't. I don't really personally. I don't see a big difference between this class and this class and this class and this class besides the subject matter. Like I don't think one is more important than the other. I think it's more important to whoever's taking it because you have to want to take it. So if you want to take dance, then you should take dance. If you want to take music, then you should take music. Of course, I'm always going to encourage people to take music, but if they don't want to, then they shouldn't. But that's a choice that they should be making, and they should want to do that. So I would encourage anybody who's looking to take whatever elective, whenever they get a chance to choose any class, even if it's not elective, when they're going to choose, they should choose stuff that interests them, that they're interested in learning more about, or whatever, and not just choose it because it checks off a box on on their transcripts or whatever. They should do it because they want to. There are some classes that you have to check off check off the transcripts, but even then, like in college, certainly when you go to pick different classes, you still get to choose. Like you get, okay, you have to pick something about, you have to pick women's studies, but there's all these classes you can choose from for women's studies. It's not like you have to take this one class. Because I remember I took a women's studies class in college because I had to take something in that category area, but I had a choice of different things. So I picked women in literature because I was like, that sounds interesting. Cool, let's do that, right? So yeah, so you always need to pick something that seems to interest you, and you're going to have that buy-in, so you're going to do well in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I definitely agree. You should do something you enjoy. So many students struggle with effectively improving in their music skills. So what's the best method that you suggest to improve one's musical skills? I know practicing is very important, but how often would you suggest to do so?
I kind of have a different philosophy of practicing than a lot of people, just because I know how it is. If I tell students you have to practice 30 minutes every single day with 1 day off in the week, that's not going to happen. Students aren't going to do that. I know that. So I always encourage students. I'm like, if you are an effective practicer, um, you can practice every other day for 15 in middle school, 15 to 20 minutes, and you will be fine. That will be fine. And then some days maybe you'll practice longer because you don't have as much homework. Some days you'll be like, well, I can't because I have the sports game or whatever. Okay, good. That's a day off of practicing or whatever. Or sometimes practicing isn't just sitting and playing your instrument. Like you could be figuring out rhythms and writing down the counting of the rhythms, clapping and counting through it, reading what the notes are, looking up terminology. Any of that stuff is practicing your skill at music. So any of that stuff would count. So just playing your instrument isn't the only kind of practice to do. um, it's kind of, that's the skill that everyone's going to see the outcome of, but if you don't have all the other knowledge, it's you're not going to get to that level. So that's one of the main things. You kind of have to set up a schedule for yourself of practicing. But when you practice, to be, like I said, effective practicer, you have to sit down and have a goal of what you want to do. If you just sit down with your music in front of you and say, okay, I'm going to practice for 20 minutes, you're not. You're going to practice maybe 5 minutes out of that 20 minutes. And like students, I'll have students in middle school, and when they've turned in practice logs, they're like, okay, Mr. Rugani, I practiced for 2 hours on Saturday. And I'll look them in the eye and say, no, you didn't. You probably practiced for 15 minutes and wasted an hour and 45 minutes of your life. Because they probably had about 15 minutes of actual, real good practicing. And then they probably kind of dilly-dallied around and were kind of like this and like playing with their instrument and kind of sitting there fiddle. Like if you took a video and actually counted how much time they did good actual practice, you'd probably find that they wasted about an hour and 45 minutes of their life. And I'm like, don't waste your life. Go in with a goal. You may not know how long it's going to take, but go in with a goal. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to practice it. Here we go. Bam. And then do it. Because that's going to be better for you.
Yeah, because like I remember we used to have practice logs, and it was like really detailed. Like we had to describe what days we practiced, how long we practiced, and like what pieces we worked on, like what measures we worked on. It was like really detailed, and then our parents had to sign them, and we turned them in like to Mr. Rugani for a grade. So I feel like that was really effective because like, yeah, that kind of helped me like, like have a goal for this week. I'm gonna work on this, and yeah, I feel like practicing is like very important.
Yeah, and that's when I did those practice logs, because most people, they have a practice, and I used to do this too. They have a practice log, just write down how much you practice every day and get it signed. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really tell me anything. It just is practice, and you could even lie about how much you practice, whatever. But so then I came up with, all right, well, let's do goals. So you actually are telling me what you want to work on, where and what you want to work on, and how you worked on it and how it went. So then I can look at that and I can go, okay, cool. This is what you worked on. This is how you worked on it. Great. And then I can also go through there and say, oh, all the trumpet players are having a hard time with this section. Maybe I need to work on that more with them because they're all struggling with it, or they're all putting it down as something. So maybe if nothing else, I just need to say, hey, trumpets, let's hear that section, how you guys play. Oh, that's sounding awesome. You guys must have been practicing. And I can get that kind of information from their practice log. So having a goal and either writing it down or knowing exactly what you're going to do is an effective way. And you don't have to practice as long. You're going to just have boom. Because also a kid who's in middle school, who's been a 6th grader or 7th grader, says, I've been practicing 2 hours. I'll say, no, you're not. You can't practice 2 hours. Like your lips won't let you practice. Like you can't physically play that long your instrument. I know this because you're only in middle school. You haven't been playing long enough. Maybe when you're a junior or senior in high school, you could play for 2 hours straight. But I remember playing 2 hour gigs when I was in high school, and I would be, like after playing a drum set, I'd be like, oh, my muscles hurt. Oh, this hurt, and I'd be really tired. But I had done that a lot. Like I to play a 2 hour gig or play a musical or whatever wasn't a big deal by the time I was in high school because I had done it many times before. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Next, I know that many students are grateful for all the music teachers out there that work so hard to improve student skills. So what's your motivation for playing and teaching young musicians?
My main motivation is I want to spread the love of the music out there. When I knew, I don't know exactly when, but early on before college, I knew I wanted to do something in music. And actually before college, because once I got to college, I knew I wanted to teach music. But I knew I didn't really want to gig, like playing concerts and stuff all the time, just because I didn't personally want to have that lifestyle of having to play every weekend and have rehearsals all the nighttime and having a lot of my nights and stuff. Um, I didn't want to have that kind of lifestyle. Lots of people they're like, oh my god, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I've done that. Like when I was younger, I had gigs all the time, and it was great. But I didn't want to spend my whole life. That was the way I wanted to do music, and I wanted to spread that love of music and go into teaching. And kind of once I went to teaching, I was like, okay, well, at this path, I'm not going to be able to spend all the time that I need to be even more proficient at my playing. I either have to do that with my schooling, like to teach, or I have to do that with my instrument. And so I would have to do one or the other. And I'd have to say, okay, I'm either going to have to fully go. I'm going to be a professional musician and play gigs all the time. And it's competitive out there. So I'm going to compete, with everybody else, and I'm going to be the best that there is. But I'd have to put in all that time, and I wouldn't be able to teach. And for me, I guess I had that calling, kind of like I should teach. I should share this passion of music with others and watch them grow. And so that's why I teach. I like the interaction with the students. I like to see them grow and mature as musicians, or even as people, but as musicians, and see them what they accomplish. Like we were talking about sixth graders before, seeing them in August and seeing them in June. I love that. I love that transition. And then their parents going, oh my gosh, last year we went to the spring concert in fifth grade and it was horrible. I'm like, it wasn't horrible. Like they were at a different level then. They're at a different level now. Like it was awesome for the time that they were in fifth grade. Like it sounded great, but we're at a different level because we've had all this extra experience. So I just have a passion for wanting to share that with the students. And it's, I think that's what drives me. And like I said, all my friends are musicians. Musician friends are, I would like to say that they're the best friends in the world, but all my friends are musicians, so I don't have like a bunch of sports friends. I mean, I do. I'm an avid cyclist, so I do have friends that are cyclists who are awesome people also. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I know that there's lots of groups with that, but I've made friendships that I know will be lifelong friendships, and I have friends throughout the United States and world who play instruments. And my wife, certainly going to NEC, she met people who were from all over the world going there. So she has friends who are all over the United States and the world who are musician friends. And so you have all this connection to people that I don't have that in the sports world. The only people I know who are outside of Contra Costa County, Alameda County area are people who have moved from here to another place. So it's the same people, just in another location. But that's basically all the people I know. And a few people I know from when I rode my bike when I lived in Boston. But so you have that community, and that's really awesome. Being a music nerd, like that term, like I was talking about this with a class last week. I was saying being a music nerd it's a good thing. Like having that, and a lot of students, they don't get that until they're like maybe sophomore year of college, high school, or junior, senior year. But usually by senior year, if they've been doing music their whole, middle school and high school, they're music nerds by the time they're seniors. They're proudly say, I'm a music nerd. And just having that, it's like people in drama their whole lives. They're drama nerds. Like that's an awesome community to belong to, and everyone should have some kind of nerd in them, right? Should have be a music
Right.
nerd, an art nerd, drama nerd, whatever it is. And that nerd is not a bad thing, but everyone should have some kind of community that they belong to. That's like, this is my nerd community, and I belong to them. And for me, that's music, and I want to share that nerd community with students, and I want them to become that in that same nerd community as me. I want them to feel that. I want the community to feel that.
I love the way you put it at the end. Yeah, I feel like it's important to be part of like a community, like to belong. So yeah, I feel like it's great you're doing that for like the students and our community.
Yeah, it's fun, and everyone needs a place where they like. I've always felt with musicians that I belong. I mean, there's competition. Don't get me like when you do things, you're competing to get a position in playing something or whatever. But even after that, like those same two people who are competing can be the bestest of friends or whatever, or even roommates. I mean, I in college I had three roommates. Three of us were percussionists, and the other roommate was a guitar player. And we didn't really compete. We were like the best friend. We did stuff all together all the time, and we were all percussionists. And one of them, Stan, I consider him being like the best musician I've ever met in my life. Like he's one of those guys who can kind of sit down and with a little bit of instruction can learn any instrument. He's a phenomenal percussionist. He's subbed with San Francisco Symphony before. And like, if I had to name like the top musicians I've ever met in the world, he would probably be my number one. And he's younger than me. Like he's younger than me, and but it's like he's just phenomenal. Like he's also just an awesome guy. He's a very down to earth and just kind of like very like just a nice guy. Like you'd meet him, you're like, oh, this guy's cool. And he doesn't like throw it in your face that he's awesome, but it's just like you watch him play and the stuff he plays and how he just analyzes it. And you're like, oh my God, like I could never do that. I'm a percussionist and I could never be at that level, even if I tried to be at that level. I don't think I have the aptitude to do that. So it just, that community is just awesome.
I definitely agree. Music really brings people together. So many musicians out there are facing obstacles and maybe steering away from the field. So did you ever have any second thoughts or obstacles in your path about becoming a musician? And if so, how did you get past them? And why did you continue being in the musical field? Because this advice can really help these individuals.
I'm trying to think if there was any. I mean, there's always obstacles. So I'm sure that I've second guessed being a musician at times. I know I've second guessed like, well, should I have played this instrument? And, learning to play other instruments, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have been more proficient at this or whatever. But I don't ever like regret being a musician. And yeah, there's been obstacles, but at the same time, like I've said, I have a community of people that I can talk to and help me work out things, or say, I'm having a hard time playing this. How do I do it? And they can help you out.
Now our band member Shruti will take over the section called Truth or Misconception. Would you like to explain this section, Shruti?
Yeah, sure. So I'm just going to be telling you guys a statement, and Mr. Rugani can answer whether it's a truth or a misconception. Okay, so truth or misconception. I won't have time to keep up with school while I'm doing band.
False. I don't know. I kind of want to say where there's a will, there's a way. If you're committed to learning music, you will learn music and everything else. I've had students in the past who are straight A students who get a 4.8 or whatever, and they go to Stanford and whatever, and they played music all 4 years of high school, and they didn't have any big issues with keeping up with things. I'm sure it's stressful. I mean, that's not how I was never that way. I wasn't one of those students who took, 20 AP classes and 62 other classes 1 year and, whatever, I don't know, whatever the case may be. But if you want to succeed, it's really just like working out a schedule for yourself. Like, this is what I need to do. And that will help you not have as much stress and kind of just help you zone into what you need to do. But you can, if you want to do it, you will be able to do it. It can happen.
Mhm.
I agree as well. I think music actually helps you do better in school. But
It can. It can. I mean, it just, you have the work that's the music, and some people will be like, well, I'm going to do all my academic stuff, and then whatever happens with music happens. And I'm like, I I don't really understand that, because that's not how
Yeah.
I'm like, well, but music is one of your classes, so either take it seriously or don't do it. Like that's what it is. Either do it and fully go for all your classes, or don't. Because again, you picked to do music. You've chosen to do it, so let's make it happen and let's do it.
yeah, for sure. The second one is truth or misconception. I can't do sports and be in band.
Um, it's difficult, but you sure can. When I taught at San Ramon Valley High School, um, I co-taught the marching group, and we had, I think for 2 of the years, we had a varsity football player in the marching group. So after they finished their game at halftime, he came and marched with the group in his football uniform, and then would go and do, because we would only do part of the halftime. So I think he still had time to do part of the halftime and then go with the team for the talk or whatever during halftime. So we've had students do that, and sometimes there's things happen and they can't do whatever competition or whatever. But um, it's hard. The thing, if you do sports and you do music, you can't choose one over the other. You need to compromise on both of them. I've had many students, and it's very frustrating, that come up to me and say, "Oh, Mr. Gunn, I have a baseball game. I can't come to the concert." I'm like, "Okay, how many baseball games do you have in a year?" "I don't know, 12. How many concerts do you have this semester?" "One." "So you can't come to one concert, but you can't miss this all of the 12 of the baseball games." So, and then the other thing I always ask them, I'll say, "Okay, all right, so you can't come. Have you talked to your coach that you have?" "No, I didn't talk to my coach about it." I'm like, "So why are you talking to me telling me you can't come, and you haven't talked to your coach, who's probably willing to say, all right, why don't you leave early or come late, whatever the case may be. Why don't you leave our practice or our game a little bit early? You play the first part of it, then you can go to your concert." And I'm like, adults are willing to compromise with you. And any adult who's not willing and saying, no, you will be here for my game, I said they should not be coaching, because that's not how life should work. It shouldn't be a, you do this and you don't do that because I'm more important. No, it's not more important. You can do it, but you need to make sure that you compromise and talk to everybody who's involved. So talk to your teacher, who's the music teacher, talk to your coach, who's the coach, and say, all right, here's my conflict. I need help figuring out what to do. Can I come late? Can I leave early? Can I, whatever the case may be. Um, I've always worked with students on that, unless they let me know like the day of the concert, and I'm like, I don't have time to work out with you. You need to be, you need to work on that ahead of time and not just spring it on me an hour before our concert. But yes, you can do both of those things. It just takes a little bit of juggling, but if you're willing to do that juggling, then you can totally do that.
Great. I completely agree. It's more fair if you talk to both people involved.
Yeah.
So, third truth or misconception is if I do band in high school, I have to continue it in college.
No. I would encourage you to, because the more you do, the longer you stay with the playing music, the better it gets, and your friendships get stronger and better. But you don't have to in college. Um, the other reason why I would suggest it, even if you're a music major, duh, obviously you're going to continue on in college. But if you're not doing music as a major or a minor, I would still do it, because it's something different in your college career, right? So if you're going, let's say you're going to be a scientist of some sort. So you have biology, you have chemistry, you have math, you have all these really like intense classes that you have to take, and labs and everything else, like 5 hour long classes and labs that you have to take, which is just like, oh my gosh, like that's so hard. Um, but then if you're playing in a band or orchestra or something like that, or a group, and you have some kind of music, it can kind of let you zone out of all those other things, which is a really cool thing about music. I mean, there are difficulties in music, but also then you go and you see your friends that, like, oh, these are my musician friends. We're cool. We get to play some music together. We just can, we get to jam, or we get to play music, whatever the case may be. And it's your brain gets to work in a different way and do something different. And it's just kind of, I don't know. It's a good thing to have as a release or as a different aspect of all the rest of the stresses and whatnot of college.
Yeah, I feel like
even in high school.
music is really like soothing. Like after like doing a lot of work, you can just like relax with music. So yeah. Thank you, Shruti, and thank you, Mr. Rugani. I would also actually like to add that I met Shruti because of band at Pine Valley Middle School. So I would like to share my band experience. So my 3 years of band at Pine Valley Middle School was such a fun and memorable experience. Band with Mr. Rugani was like so educational, and it shaped me into a better and more confident musician. Not only was band with Mr. Rugani like educational, it was so fun. Like after a long day of learning math, science, doing academics, I always looked forward to band like as a way to relax, talk to my friends, even though we weren't supposed to talk, and play the trumpet. Um, Also, every year we had like a whole new group of students. Like in 6th grade cadet band, we had a different group, and then 7th and 8th grade, we had different students. So I feel like band was like a really, really amazing way of meeting various talented musicians and making new friends. One of my favorite band memories was Disneyland in 7th grade symphonic band with Shruti, actually. It was super duper fun, but in 8th grade, due to lockdown, we didn't get to go. But I still had a lot of amazing memories in 8th grade band. Also, sometimes I remember that Mr. Rugani used to offer classes such as jazz band before school and these music composition classes after school. Those classes were really enjoyable and they were very informative. So yeah, that's my band experience. Shruti, how was your band experience?
Sorry, I was muted. My band experience was also pretty great. I started playing flute when I was in 4th grade, and I continued band throughout middle and elementary school. What inspired me really was seeing the older kids play and watching them completely get lost in the music. Their music was so amazing sounding, and I knew that I just wanted to play. So I did. And when I joined Pine Valley Middle School Band, the first thing that I realized was that everyone was so welcoming and kind to me because I was the new kid there. But yeah, I made so many great friends and memories. As Shivali was saying, we went to Disneyland, and I think that was a really fun experience. We got to go backstage and play a couple Disney songs, and we performed our own songs. And the rest of the time, we were just at Disneyland having fun. So I want to mention that band doesn't only teach you about music and your instrument, but it's also kind of a skill building thing because you learn not to give up if you don't get it at first, perseverance, determination. And if you think about it, it's kind of like you're working on a team. So you learn team building skills. You have to listen to each other and help each other to eventually reach an amazing destination. And also, one of the best experiences I think of band is actually performing the song on stage because that's the moment that it all leads up to. And there's so much anticipation. Everyone's just watching you, the lights are on you, and the conductor raises the baton, and then we just start playing, and everything's quiet, and everyone's just listening to you. And when you finish the song, there's this moment of silence, but afterwards the crowd just starts roaring with applause, which is an amazing feeling, I think at least. And besides that, I just want to say, as we mentioned before, I think band is a great way to bring people together because I think music, as the saying goes, doesn't really need a language. Everyone can understand music and everyone can enjoy it. So it was just this place where we all got together, no matter where you came from or who you hung out with. We just created music together. And yeah, by joining band, you won't just learn music, but you'll also make amazing lifelong friends and learn a bunch of skills that'll, you know, come with you long life and your journey. That was my band experience. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, band was a magical experience. Um, Moving on, I'd like to ask you some more questions. Um, so, what is the best advice you've ever received music related?
The best advice that I ever received. Wow. I don't know. I don't know what the best advice that I ever received would be. You know what? I would have to get back to you on that because I'm not sure what the best
Mhm.
advice would be.
Yeah, it is pretty thought-provoking, but yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
I mean,
get back to
I've had
that one.
lots of advice, keep practicing, try harder, the
Mhm.
normal kind of stuff, but that's the normal. I'm trying to think of something that's more like, oh, but I don't have anything specific to that. Um, I could share like something that was kind of the opposite, which was when I was in college, junior college. I went to junior college and I went to four-year university after that. When I was in junior college, so a little bit of background first. When I went to college, I did not know how to read music on like staff. I didn't know how to read ABC. I didn't know how to read any of that. I
Oh,
could read
wow.
rhythms, but I didn't know how to read music that way. So when I was a freshman in college, I was learning music theory and how to read music and ear training and piano all at the same time. So I was learning all of that stuff and I didn't know how to read music. So I was learning how to read the notes as well while I was doing theory. I kind of knew a little bit about it, but I couldn't have really told you where everything was, which is another reason why I'm really adamant about students knowing what the notes are on a page and stuff like that. So I had a test. It was a singing test for sight re singing, and anyone who's taken sight singing, even for singers, sight singing is a hard class. But for someone who has never sung anything, I was taking it, and I think it was the second semester. Um, it could have maybe even been my second year, so I already had a year in. I don't remember what year it was, but I went to my professor and I had a singing test with her. So I met her in her office, and she was having me sing some stuff. And I've had no choir experience at this point, and my ear training is horrible because I've never really played an instrument where I had to know how to play things in tune or whatever. So I'm trying to learn all this stuff at once. And so I met with her and we sang, and it was a pretty disaster. It was not very good. And so she said, "So what do you want to achieve with music? What do you want to do in music?" I said, "Well, I'm training. I want to be a music teacher. I want to teach music." I said, "I don't know what level yet, but I want to teach music." And so she looked at me and she said, "You may want to change your mind."
Wow.
And I was like,
Oh my God.
it was like a slap in the face. And that was one of the reasons why after that I said, I'm going to show you. I am going to show
Wow.
you. I'm going to become a music teacher because I want to, but also because I want to come back and show you I've made it. I'm doing fine doing this. And since then I've gotten a lot better with ear training just because I've played a lot longer and I've had more experience with it. But it was kind of like, how dare you like stomp on my dreams like that? Like
Wow.
with something that I'm trying. I just don't get it, and I'm trying. But so it's kind of the opposite type of thing. So it wasn't so much about the most inspiring thing someone said to me or whatever. It was kind of more an inspiring thing by something someone did or something someone said to me that was negative. That I was like, what? I was like, okay,
You
no.
definitely showed her. Yeah, you're an
So yeah,
amazing.
it was really like, no. You know what? What you should do is say, be honest. That was awful. Let's figure out how we're going to make it better, because that would be
Yeah.
the right way to approach it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a horrible way
Yeah,
for
that's
her
kind
to.
of a rude thing to say to a student.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was kind of like, uh, whoa, yeah.
Wow. That was interesting. What would you be doing if you wouldn't be doing your music career?
I don't know. I've thought about that before. I've thought about, well, if I wasn't teaching music or if I wasn't playing music, what would I fall back on? A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to do music as my fallback." Well, music is my career and my fault. Like I don't have a fallback. So I don't know what I would be doing. I would probably, because I have a knack for the teaching part, like educating people. When I was in Boston, when I was having a hard time with finding a job, I got a second job at a bike shop because I'm a biker and I like biking. And I really enjoyed doing the research and teaching when people wanted to buy a bike, teaching them why this bike did this and why this bike did this, and for what they wanted to do, this bike would be a better choice for them. And I didn't care if they bought the bike, but I like educating people. So I think if I was not in music or music education, I think I'd be in education in some other fashion. I don't know what it would be, but I think I'd be in music in some way or in some kind of sales position where I could inform people and teach people about a product or something, because that's my passion. That's what I like to do. And I like to feel that I'm good at that. At least sometimes I'm good at that. So
Yeah, you are.
I think that's what I would probably be doing. I don't know exactly what it would be in, but it'd be some kind of education teaching of some sort. It just wouldn't be in music.
Okay. Before we go, what's your favorite instrument and why? I think you've already mentioned this, but you said you like to play the drums a lot. So is that your
Well,
favorite
my
instrument?
primary instrument is percussion and drums. That's what I've been trained on. That's when I tell students, they say, "What is your instrument?" I say, "Well, drums, percussion are what people pay me to play. Like if they're going to hire me to play something, they're going to hire me to play the drum set or whatever. They're not going to hire me to play the flute or the trumpet or whatever. Maybe if it was for elementary school, but they're probably not going to hire me. I'm just going to say, you know what? I'll just come sit in with the band. That's fine. Whatever. I don't care." But I think one of my favorite kind of instrument, I like low instruments, which is weird because I don't play any low instruments. So I like bass clarinet, the bari sax, tuba, bass, all the contrabass instruments. I like those. Those are like, I hear those and I'm like, oh yes, that's like a good bass clarinet is just like, oh, that's so awesome. It sounds really good. I don't even play those instruments. I mean, I can play them, but I can't play them well. But just the sound of them. But I really like my favorite kind of music to listen to that I wish I could do is a cappella singing.
Mhm.
And like barbershop. I wish I could be in a barbershop quartet, but I would sing. I could be in a barbershop quartet if I was the one who was able to sing the melody part. But my voice is tenor baritone, so I would always be singing the inner parts, and those are the hardest parts to sing, and I wouldn't be successful with singing with three other guys trying to make that work. But like a well-oiled barbershop quartet or a jazz choir or something, a group of students or people who are singing and they're making all the harmonies and all the sounds with their voices. I think that's totally awesome. And I love that. I don't even teach choir anymore, but that's like one of my favorite kinds of music, just to kind of like, oh, that's awesome. Like one of my most favorite musicians is Bobby McFerrin. I don't know if you know who Bobby McFerrin is. He's well known for singing "Don't Worry, Be Happy." Don't worry, be happy. Woo. So he's the one who's saying that, but that's like not one of his most favorite pieces of music to perform. But he's known for that one. But he's like his vocalese, like the range of his voice and what he can do with his voice is just like amazing. Like I just love listening to him. And he sings classical music, he sings jazz music, he sings all sorts of stuff. And it's just like to listen to him sing is just amazing. And I love
Oh,
listening.
I'll listen to him for sure. I haven't heard of him before.
Yeah,
But
Bobby McFerrin is and he's been around for years, and he's just a phenomenal musician. And he's sung with he has a cool album with Yo Yo Ma on the cello, and he has a really cool. I love his jazz album with Chick Corea on piano. He just like he just sing, and he does a Fourier. He does a song by Fourier that's just like, oh my god, it's so beautiful, and it just to listen to him sing is just awesome. And there's a few of those singers that are just like, oh wow. But
do you
like,
enjoy singing?
what's that?
Do you enjoy singing?
Um, I don't enjoy singing that much. I mean,
Oh,
when I can, if it's in the right environment, sure. Um, but it's one of the things that I wish I would have been able to. I wish that would have been something that I would have done when I was younger and had some more experience. Like I was so into music in high school. My senior year of high school, we only had to take 5 classes, um, and I took let's see, I had jazz band, I was TA for jazz choir, and then I had 3 classes that were math, English, and poli sci and economics. Those are like all my, but they were all music. And then I gigged all the time. I had gigs all the time. I had groups that I played with outside of school and whatnot. So if I would have known then, I probably would have added choir into that, because that would have been awesome. And like when I was in college, we didn't really have choirs at where I went to 4-year college, but my senior year of college, because I had gone to a JC, so I had done most of all of my academic classes. I got out of the way when I was in JC. Then when I went to college, I basically had 2 years where I had to take some other English classes and history classes and stuff like that. I did my first 2 years at the 4-year college, and then it was all music. And my last year in school, I had taken all my education classes. I just had a year because I had to finish up percussion stuff. I think I took 8 classes. Every single one of them was a performance class.
Oh, wow.
I had jazz band, a wind ensemble, percussion ensemble. I was in like 3 combos. I had like 7 or 8 classes that I took. Every single one of them was performance. None of them were academic. Every single one, just because I was like, yes. But I also had worked hard and taken every class I needed to take up to that point, and I had to finish up taking my percussion and finishing my jury and stuff like that for my senior year. So I wish at some point in there I would have been, put into in college I did take choir one semester, and then it kind of went away. And we did a concert. I did enjoy doing that, but I never really got into it. So I think if I was put into choir or were able to sing more with people who knew what they were doing and bring me to that level, I think I would have a lot of fun with it, just because I really like the harmonies and whatnot with it. But I don't do a lot of singing besides, like on my own or singing for the students in class when I'm like, okay, your part goes like this. Da, da, da. And I guess I kind of enjoy that, but I never really got into singing in like a group. But that's something that I would have, looking back at what I've done now, I would have liked to learn piano when I was young. I would have liked to be in chorus, and then done everything else that I've done. So everything else that I've done. But those are 2 things that I wish I would have done. And anyone who's really, really motivated and wants to do music, certainly as a career, I would say do that. Definitely do piano. Make sure you can play a piano. Even if you can't play really, really well, just know your way around a piano, like be able to sit down at something and kind of pluck it out even slowly. And if you can, do some kind of chorus so that you kind of have a well-rounded, I've got my ear training from chorus and from piano, and then I relate that into band or strings or whatever. But if you want to be well-rounded with that, I would suggest that you try to do that, because that'll make you like, a force to be reckoned with in the music world, if you will.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Rugani, for taking the time and sharing this valuable information. I'm sure this will help answer any questions that incoming students may have about the Pine Valley Middle School band program. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I think we all learned a lot from this.
Good. Well, thank you for having me. It's been great. I like what you're doing here, and I hope I can help you more or see what you do in the future. And keep me notified of what's going on. Keep me involved. If you need me again to come back or need any support, let me know, and I'll be happy to help out where I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.